All right, everybody, we are live on the discussion. So we're going to have another debate, another lively debate. This time between Logan and Victor Vargas, who's been on the show before countless of times, along with Logan. So we're going to do this. We're going to get this debate started. As you know, the title of the debate is "Does the Christian God exist?" Victor's going to be taking the positive, affirmative, and then Logan's going to be debating against it. So he's going to be taking the opposite um, position. So by those rules, if we go by the strict debate rules, I'm going to let Victor start it off. But just to let everybody know, we're going to do a 15-minute opening. Then we're going to have a 10-minute rebuttal cross examination. And then we'll have a 15-minute open discussion, and then we'll have a 30-minute or 30-minute open discussion and a 10-minute closing. And then after that, I guess we can take questions from the audience. Last time we had a debate, we got a really good turnout. I got more people to view that video than any other video I've ever put up on this channel. So I think this one is going the same way. We've already got some people in the audience now. So I kind of see this is going the same way. So let's get it on and get it started. Victor, you go ahead and with your 15-minute opening, and the floor is yours. Go for it.
Okay, the topic, does the Christian God exist? Yes, and here is why. I'm not here to debunk or disprove other gods, other religious claims, or other miraculous claims of other religions. Time is limited, so I will not deal with the red herring fallacy of talking about other religions or religious claims. I'm here to respond to what the historians, philosophers, and scientists present and conclude about the physical universe, life, reality, and finally, if Jesus is God and existed. So the question is, how does Victor and Mr. Logan respond to the historical evidence, philosophical information, and scientific data? So let's take the Christian God to court. Claim number one, the book of Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The book of John, chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was fully God. The Word was with God in the beginning. All things were created by Him, and apart from Him, not one thing was created that has been created. In Him was life, and the life was the light of mankind, and the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness was not comprehended. Now the Word became flesh and took residence among us. We saw His glory, the glory of the one and only, full of grace and truth, who came from the Father. John testified about Him and shouted out, "This is the one about whom I said, he who comes after me is greater than I am, because he existed before me." For we all have received from His fullness one gracious gift after another. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came about Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. The only one, Himself God, who is in the closest fellowship with the Father, has made Him known. My response to this historical data. Notice we have two independent sources, the book of Genesis, authored by Moses, the book of John, authored by John. Now, what are they claiming? They're claiming agency, that the universe was created by a who. Now, in the book of John, this God introduces Himself as Jesus, the Logos, the Word of God. We also see that Jesus is claiming to be God, the truth of all reality, the author of life, wisdom, love, and justice. Now let us see what the scientific data tells us about the universe. The scientific evidence of a beginning. Scientists believe the Big Bang theory is an explanation of the early development of the universe. According to this theory, the universe expanded from an extremely small, extremely hot, and extremely dense state. Since then, it has expanded and become less dense and cooler. The Big Bang is the best model used by astronomers to explain the creation of matter, energy, space, and time 13.7 billion years ago. What evidence is there to support the Big Bang theory? Two major scientific discoveries provided support for the Big Bang theory. Edwin Hubble's discovery in the 1920s of a relationship between a galaxy's distance from Earth and its speed. The discovery in the 1960s of the cosmic microwave background radiation. Lawrence Krauss and Michio Kaku did a documentary of the Big Bang theory, and it explains in the very first 2 minutes that all started at the Big Bang: time, matter, space, and energy. My response to this evidence: everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore, the universe has a cause. What caused the Big Bang? Stephen Hawking, in the book A Brief History of Time, many people do not like the idea that time has a beginning, probably because it smacks a divine intervention. There were, therefore, a number of attempts to avoid the conclusion that there had been a Big Bang. Dr. Vibert Douglas, 40 Minutes with Einstein, Journal of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, page 100, quote the following: Einstein tried to avoid such a beginning by creating and holding on to his cosmological fudge factor in his equation until 1931, when Hubble's astronomical observations caused him to grudgingly accept the necessity of a beginning. George F. R. Ellis, Before the Beginning, Cosmology Explained, 1994, page 97. To make sense of this view, design as opposed to accident, one must accept the idea of transcendence, that the designer exists in a totally different order of reality, being not restrained within the bounds of the universe itself. Claim number 2, the moral argument. Objective moral laws exist, therefore God exists. By objective law, we mean independent of human opinion. In other words, the murder of an innocent man is always wrong, no matter where you are in the world. Now, the fact is, all humans are moral beings, whether you're an atheist or of any other worldview. I bring to the table the case against slavery to humans, of humans. Slavery, meaning forced labor, forced marriage. Birth referred to situation of exploitation that a person cannot refuse or cannot leave because of threats, violence, coercion, deception, or abuse of power. Why is it wrong? Jesus Christ gave us 2 commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and power. 2, love your neighbor as you love yourself. This is the moral foundation from God that reflects his nature. So why is slavery wrong? Because we're all created in the image of God and we're all brothers in this life. Claim number 3. What's the origin of human life? I appeal to the scientific information of the discovery of the DNA and how the cell works. Many scientists call the cell a busy factory. What is DNA? It's the molecule that carries genetic information for the development and function of an organism. My response to the discovery of DNA: the biological and chemistry information is just like a computer code. Information postulates a mind, and that mind, in my opinion, comes from God. Professor Francis Crick, awarded the Nobel Prize for the discovery of the DNA, wrote, an honest man armed with all the knowledge available to us now could only state that in some sense the origin of life appears at the moment almost a miracle. So many are the conditions which would have to been satisfied to get it going. From the Book of Life itself, in 1991, page 88. Carl Sagan, in the Encyclopedia Britannica, in 1974, page 893 through 94. A living cell is a marvel of detail and complex architecture. Seen through a microscope, there is an appearance of almost frenetic activity. On a deeper level, it is known that molecules are being synthesized at an enormous rate. The information content of a simple cell has been estimated around 10 to the 12 power bits, comparable to about 100 million pages of Encyclopedia Britannica. Claim number 4. Where does consciousness and mind come from? Is consciousness and mind reducible to physical material and chemistry? If mind and consciousness is a physical material, where is it located in the brain? Because of lack of time, I will bring this topic to the open discussion. The case that I will bring to the table is the case of Velma Thomas, who holds the record of being dead for 17 hours. Claim number 5. Lately, the medical psychiatrists have been investigating cases for over 20 years of demon possession, in other words, of the paranormal activities. In the open discussion, I will bring the documented cases of paranormal activities and demon possession. Claim number 6. Finally, I lay before you the case of the existence of Jesus, who claimed to be God and proved it by rising from the dead. If Mr. Logan can give us a logical argument against the resurrection of Jesus, then there is no Christian God. And it would be fair to say that some other God could exist. Their empirical verifiable claim, John chapter 2, 2 to 12. Jesus claimed to bodily resurrect. He said, destroying this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. The Pharisees thought he was talking about a physical temple of the temple of Israel, but he was in Jerusalem, but he wasn't. He was talking about his temple. And in verse 22, he says, after he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and saying that Jesus had spoken. Here are the facts of the case for the resurrection. Fact 1, Jesus died by crucifixion. Non-friendly sources and scholars, Marcus Burke, Gert Ludemann, John Dominic Crossan, Pinchas Lapid, Paul Fredrickson, and the famous Bart Ehrman all agreed that the death of Jesus by crucifixion is a historical fact. Fact number 2, Jesus was buried by an enemy. Jesus was buried in a tomb by a Joseph of Arimathea. This means the location of the tomb was known. Fact number 3, Jesus appeared to the women. The fact that women's testimony was discounted in the first century Palestine stands in favor of the women's role in the discovery of the empty tomb. According to Josephus, the testimony of women was regarded as worthless, so worthless that it could not even be admitted in a Jewish court of law. Any later legendary story would certainly made male disciples discover the empty tomb. But why women? Fact number 4, nobody believed Jesus which he was claiming to be God. In the book of Mark, chapter 3, Jesus' family believed he was out of his mind. Jesus' brother didn't believe him either. In the book of John, chapter 3, they stated, go and show yourself to the people. If you really are claiming who you're claiming to be, show yourself to the world. Fact number 5, I bring to the court of law the enemy of the Christian who is called Saul of Tarsus, later called Paul. Okay? The conversion of Paul is a major blow in the court of law. Imagine your very own enemy testifying in court that he too saw the risen Jesus. Jesus' post-resurrection appearance to Paul is described in detail in the book of Acts, chapter 9, chapter 19, chapter 26, and so on. Now, here I bring to the table what historians consider value. Okay, how close was the event to the after the resurrection, after the crucifixion? I bring to the table the Christian Creed, 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8. Here are the non-friendly resources scholars: James D.G. Dunn, Michael Golder, Ulrich Wilkins, Gert Ludemann, Paul Bennett, Richard Burridge, Graham Gold, Robert Funk and the Jesus Seminar, Richard Hayes, and Alexander Wittenberg. All these scholars agreed that this creed could have come as early as a month to 5 years after the fact. Conclusion: based on the scientific evidence and medical data, the physical world postulates a mind behind all physical matter and material. Based on the historical facts, Jesus existed and rose from the dead. In summary, how does Mr. Logan best explain the information laid before him? If I'm wrong, explain to me how would you respond to this data? In summary, number 1, the Big Bang Theory. What caused the Big Bang? Number 2, the moral argument. Do objective moral laws exist? Number 3, what's the origin of human life? Does the DNA discovery and what we know how the cells work, is it scientifically possible that it could evolve from non-life? Number 4, what's the origin of consciousness in the mind? Are these products of the brain? Where is consciousness located in the brain? Number 5, what are we to conclude with the psychiatric data that demon possession is real? Number 6, did Jesus exist? Did Jesus rise from the dead? Thank you.
All right. So we've heard our opening from Victor. He pretty much poses a few big questions to Logan. Of course, he'll have to get to that, I'm sure, after his opening, which he's probably already pre-written out. So, or maybe not. Maybe he'll go ahead and answer questions like the Big Bang, origin of life, consciousness. Did Jesus exist? Did he die? Did he come back to life? All of this stuff. Because we're trying to get at, does the Christian God exist? So it would kind of make sense that Jesus would have to exist to begin with, just as a man, as claimed. The other questions, we'll see how Logan responds to those. But we'll go ahead and give it over to Logan. So when you're ready, man, the floor is all yours.
All right. Thank you, Victor, for doing this debate, and Scott for hosting. And thank you, any audience members we have. I see someone named Ben, I think. I didn't really write up a word for word account. I already had several documents that I could refer to. So I won't necessarily be addressing anything that Victor said directly, although it may come up in my introduction. I would say that a major hole in Christian theology is reconciling the three laws of thought with the Orthodox understanding of God. Their God is said to be a Trinity. I think this is something Victor will accept. However, I can cite the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and also Christianity.com that support this notion that a major doctrine of Christianity is the Trinity. If Victor wants those exact citations, I will. Otherwise, I'll assume he agrees that God is a Trinity. A person is normally defined as a human individual. Of course, Christians don't mean God is human, but if they remove individual, they are left with a term that means nothing. I will assume they mean individual. Thus, they are claiming God exists as three persons. This easily violates the three laws of thought. The first defined, the law of identity, states that each thing is identical with itself. A equals A. I, Logan, equal Logan and only Logan. Scott does not equal Logan. Victor does not equal Logan. To claim that Logan equals Victor would mean we are not two individuals. Neither of us would agree with that, and neither would anyone else. Yet Christians attempt to say somehow God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are the same, yet not. The contradiction is clear. Second, the law of non-contradiction states that contradictory propositions cannot both be true in the same sense at the same time. For example, two propositions, P is the case and P is not the case, are mutually exclusive. The Trinity once again violates this principle of logic. It is the case that God is one at the same time God is not one. Finally, the third, the law of excluded middle, or the principle of excluded middle, states that for every proposition, either this proposition or its negation is true. For God, this means it is either the case that he is three, or it is not the case that he is three. Once one claims God is one, then it means that he is not three, and vice versa. So Victor will have to admit that if the Christian God exists, he is either one God only, and therefore the Trinity is a false doctrine, or it is in fact a pantheistic belief limited to three gods. It is commonly held that anything that violates one or more of the fundamental laws of thought cannot exist. For example, a thought process in philosophy is called possible worlds. This doesn't mean actual worlds that exist out there. It means that you can think about any world that exists as long as it does not violate a law of logic. So for this, we come up with the final proof. P1, anything that violates one or more of the fundamental laws of thoughts cannot exist. P2, the Christian God violates one or more fundamental laws of thought. Conclusion, therefore, the Christian God cannot exist. Let's see, what else want to move on? Argument for inconsistent revelations. Victor says he does not wish to address or defend other gods. However, he also kind of flipped on that toward the end of his introduction when he said that certain things could be true about creation, yet the Christian God not exist. One thing for me that puts a huge burden on the Christians to defend their beliefs is the argument for inconsistent revelations. Their belief is that the God of the Old Testament and the God that Christians believe, and they fuse into their own belief system and separate from the Jews, is the God of all, the God of everyone. He created the world. He is the God of everyone. He was the God of the Aborigines before we discovered them. However, the Aborigines just weren't aware of it. Neither were the Native Americans. So they're confident in their beliefs, especially in the face of atheists and their non-beliefs. But all religions think their texts are sacred and revealed by their version of God. The Vedas claim God as a multitude. Hebrews claim God has set them apart. Christians claim God as three persons, and one of them took human form to sacrifice himself to himself. Mormons make further claims. Muslims make even further claims. Pagans claim multiple gods and mother goddesses among them. If the Christian God is the God of all, why did he choose such a problematic way of revealing himself to humanity, to a minor tribe that no one would listen to. They were often defeated. And then finally, in a hotbed of messianic, what do I want to say? Messianism. You know what I'm trying to say? That was going on during all that time. We had the Egyptian, anyway, Josephus lists all these messiahs, potential messiahs that were abroad. So it's quite believable that this other messianic mythology would develop around that time. He also gave us no objective way to determine how his beliefs are true as opposed to the beliefs of other religions. For Victor to claim the Christian God exists, he cannot argue a general God like some do. He must defend the Christian specific God and why God only revealed himself to a limited population and has only been delivered by word of mouth. Never have we gone to a society and they say, oh yeah, we know that Jesus God, he revealed himself to us, unless you're a Mormon. See if I have time to get to that. I will go to my other syllogism that demonstrates that it's warranted to believe the resurrection did not occur. The syllogism is mine. However, the elaboration was given to me by Stephen Hoyt. He is a degreed philosopher, so this has some merit. My original syllogism reads, human beings that are dead for 4 days stay dead. This is basic. Jesus was a human being who was dead for days. Unless you want to argue Jesus did not exist, this is also basic. So Jesus stayed dead. The rest will be Stephen Hoyt's elaboration on my syllogism. It is vitally important to note that 1, human beings stay dead for days. Human beings that are dead for days stay dead is warranted by the admission that Jesus' resurrection was a miracle. It would be obvious why that is, but it's because 1 is the unwavering history of all human beings. Miracles are exceptions. So to claim that Jesus' resurrection was miraculous is to admit one is completely grounded and warranted. That means resurrectionists have to have exceptionally good reasons to explain one away. That resurrection is possible is not a good reason, much less exceptional. Is history, the professional field of study, going to eliminate the odds? No. Premise 1, and that Jesus' resurrection was miraculous, admits there are no priors, i.e. evidence for resurrection. So no Bayesian probability of that sort adds up. So is an abduction about resurrection being true warranted? Stephen and I do not think so. And I think that's basically what Victor offers is an abductive reason. He tries to offer these facts that are accepted by historians. However, I would challenge him. The major person that does this minimal facts, I think he started it, was Gary Habermas. He has reduced it from a ton of facts down to 6. And I think he kind of reduces those to 4. But we shall see. So I will go ahead and address some of this minimal facts argument because I already had it typed up. A fact is defined as a thing that is known or proved to be true. However, in history, things called facts aren't always so resilient. Remember when Columbus discovered America? King Arthur being regarded as a real person? Historical facts, especially those in antiquity, are on shaky grounds as support for an entire worldview. Let's look at Habermas's 6 minimal facts he thinks warrants his belief. Jesus died by crucifixion. So, what? This one thing does nothing to support a resurrection. Jesus could have died by disease and still be believed to be risen. His disciples had experiences they believed were appearances by the risen Jesus. I would challenge the idea that Jesus even had disciples. This is nowhere in Paul. He only uses the word apostle to refer to Peter and James and John. The 12 is mentioned, but Paul never identifies the term to refer to the 12 men that followed Jesus around. In actual fact, he never even mentions a ministry by Jesus. There are no parables, no sightings of John's speeches, no miracles by Jesus. This fact isn't a fact at all, but an assumption based on later writings by an anonymous author named Mark, that we call Mark. But I do think we can say that Jesus had a number of followers that were inspired by him, and when he passed away, they were so decimated. They experienced cognitive dissonance and had to reinterpret what they thought and came up with these ideas. It is possible that Peter had a grief hallucination, and maybe some others did. It could just come down to Peter had the hallucination and he inspired others to do so. Victor did not mention that, so I will not mention that one. Proclaimed very early, I do think Victor mentioned that. Again, it's not a fact. It's based again on writings by anonymous authors. Paul never locates Jesus in time. Even Acts places the announcement at least 40 days. Where have we heard that before? Very early. After Jesus' death. The Heaven's Gate cultists also announced their beliefs very early, as did Mormons, even if a fact it does nothing to support a belief in a resurrection that will override my syllogism. The conversion of Paul. Again, Paul admits he wasn't favorable to the early believers. However, an opponent converting is nothing miraculous, pun intended. People are convinced by bad arguments all the time. Perhaps guilt played a part if he was violent. Constantine saw an image in the sky that convinced him to support Christianity. Paul never specifies his vision, but it could be something along the line of what Constantine experienced. Indeed, even in the book of Acts, of the 3 accounts, Paul never saw anything but a light and heard a voice. He never actually saw Jesus. Did he even know what Jesus looked like? The conversion of James. James is listed with Peter and John as pillars. I'm not so sure his later portrayal on the Gospels is more than literary devices. The James mentioned as being as a council in Acts is never identified as a brother of Jesus. Whether a literal brother or not, I think James was just like Peter and John, not an opponent of Jesus, but an early convert. I think the stories that developed later were because of certain factions, and they wanted to put James in a bad light in the Gospels. Regardless of that opinion, even if James opposed his brother during the latter's ministry, it does not necessitate a miracle. James could have either been convinced by Peter or, being Jesus' brother, saw an opportunity for prestige and wealth. Note how Paul often discusses several times taking money back to Jerusalem. Whether a sincere or devious conversion, no miracle needed. So again, my modified syllogism doesn't argue miracles are impossible. It merely demonstrates that they are improbable, and belief in the Christian God is not warranted, and Victor will have to demonstrate why he believes it is warranted. That is all.
All right. Very good. So just to let you know, because we're coming up on the cross-examination, I went ahead and put down some of the statements you made in your opening so that Victor could cross-examine you in case, Victor, you want a refresher or you want to know again what his points were. They're right there in the private chat.
Yeah,
so you can look at them.
I could write so fast.
That's right. I was trying to write fast.
You didn't do that for me, man.
I was so scared. I didn't have enough time to. But I was going to do the rebuttal and then the cross-examination.
10-minute rebuttals each.
Okay.
What we just said.
10-minute each. I wanted to get Victor's points too, but I didn't think about it until too late. So, anyways, I'll go ahead and let Victor do his part of the cross-examination. So the floor is yours.
No, I thought we were doing rebuttals.
Okay.
Or rebuttals. I'm sorry. Yeah, I keep thinking something.
Okay. Wrong. Here's my rebuttal. The Trinity. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 6, it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one." No, not me, but the Bible clearly states there's only one God. Okay. Now, like I told you guys before, in John chapter 1, it states that God manifested in the person of Jesus Christ. Now, watch this. He wants to argue the Trinity. Well, let's destroy it right now. If Jesus is not God, there is no Trinity. Very simple. If Jesus is not God, there is no Trinity. And here's how I'm going to explain it to you. Only God can forgive sins. Mark chapter 2, Jesus forgives sins. Okay? In the book of Matthew, it is stated when he was tempted by the devil, only worship God, but he was worshipped as a baby. You can read it there too. Okay? Another thing, in John, in the book of John, my memory is more of audible because it's very hard for me to keep reading and memorize everything. But here's you're going to read. Whatever the Father does, the Son can do. What does that mean? Whatever the Father does, the Son can do. If Jesus is not God, he cannot do what the Father does. Okay? So let's talk about the Trinity. Everybody knows Brad Pitt, right? You know Brad Pitt. Watch this. Brad Pitt is one human who acted as Achilles, John Smith, and in Snatch. So one human being acted in three different persons. Am I saying that all of these are different, or am I saying that one human acted as three different persons? That is an idea that you can have, that the Trinity is possible. Is a triune. We never said three gods. Now, Jake the metaphysician, okay, which this sounds familiar, says this: Jesus is God, Holy Spirit is God, and the Father is God. No, we don't say that, because that would mean if I come to you, Mr. Logan, and I said, Victor is God, my second middle name is Nahum is God. Victor is human, Nahum is human, Vargas is human, Castro is human, therefore Victor is four humans. We don't say that. We say that God is one and he manifests in three different persons, distinct persons. Okay? It's a state of being. He's not saying three gods. Okay. Second, why did God reveal himself to the Jews? Well, think about this. Okay? Because he's a humble God. Why? I want you to notice that the revelation to the Jews, it wasn't because they were special. It was so they can become special. Okay? They were supposed to be the light of this world. But of course, as you know and you mentioned it, they failed. So that's why Jesus had to come. Okay? Now, this is the most important thing, though. Did Jesus existed? Yes. I can name you many scholars. Okay? Now, here's the major part that I want to discuss. He says dead people stay dead. Yeah. That's why the crucifixion, okay, is very important. As I named to you all the scholars, non-Christian scholars, that tell you death by crucifixion is a fact. Now watch this now. Here's the major question, Mr. Logan. If nobody believed Jesus, nobody, not his family, not his friends, not his disciples, not even Paul, even worse, Paul. Where does hallucination come into this? How do you just throw away the conversion of Paul? Nobody's claiming that the conversion of Paul is a miracle. But how do you explain his conversion? You haven't made that argument yet. You haven't made the argument how is it possible that a person who saw Jesus being crucified later on is going to hallucinate? No. When Peter denied the Christ 3 times, he left. The brave ones here with the women, they didn't even believe it. Thomas said in John chapter 20, unless I see him with my own eyes, unless I see him and I put my hands in his thigh, in his holes and everything, I will not believe. Jesus appeared to him in John chapter 20, and Thomas calls him my Lord and my God. So, the conversion of Paul. I want you to pay attention to this. Paul was an enemy of the church. Why would he hallucinate? Or do you think some just baby light is going to come out and just say, hey, Paul, guess what? Here is Jesus. He's just going to say, okay, let me go ahead and leave Judaism, what I've done all my life, and all of a sudden, I'm a Christian. What are their motives? Was Paul so excited to die for something that he hated? Because he didn't love the Christian. He hated Christianity. So just because Paul didn't see the crucifixion, but he saw the risen Christ. And here's the major thing. When Jesus revealed, notice what he was saying in the conversation in the road to Jerusalem with the 2 guys. He said this, why are you guys so troubled? He said, because Jesus had been crucified. And then they go, are you the only one who doesn't know this? because everybody knows about the crucifixion that had just happened. And then when he went and ate and dined with them and he broke the bread, their eyes were open and they saw the risen Jesus. So I really don't see in his opening much of an argument. I mean, Jesus existed. If Jesus existed, now watch this. If Jesus existed, why should I worry about Jesus? But the reason Christianity is the number one religion, the reason that Christianity was, let me explain to you, rose so quickly was because Jesus rose from the dead is the best explanation, or else nobody, I mean, these guys going to their death doesn't give you a good explanation that they made up a lie or saw hallucination. Hallucinations are personal, just like dreams. Okay? Notice, that's why I gave you the 1 Corinthians chapter 13, as it states. I gave you, he says, for I passed on to you at first point what I also saw, that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day to the scripture, and that he appeared to Peter and then to the 12. Then he appeared to 500 and sisters at one time, most of whom are still alive. In other words, go and verify. And then he says, okay, to James. Why to James? James' brother didn't believe him. He says, is this guy? I wouldn't believe it either. Like, my big brother comes to me and tells me that he's gone. Are you crazy? I would say, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Let's send him to the psychological asylum or whatever. But the reason James is a very important conversion is because he had to see the risen Jesus. And that's basically what I got from him. I'll hand it over to you now.
All right, really good. I think if I keep dragging on this, I'm going to see the risen Jesus myself. Wow, this is some really, really strong stuff here. But anyways, go ahead, Logan. Let's hear what you got to say for your rebuttal. The floor is yours, brother.
Just be careful. I saw you about light your beard up.
Mm-hmm. That's how bad it is.
All right. So in Victor's opening, he mentioned the book of Genesis and opening of John, the book of John, Gospel of John, chapter 1. He calls those historical data. They are not historical data. They are historical works that we look at to peer into what people of that time believed. They are not, however, what I would consider historical data as establishing facts of creation. The Big Bang is the beginning of the expansion of the universe. It is not necessarily the beginning of the universe itself. Referring to Sean Carroll, who is a PhD physicist, there are different ways the universe could have existed before the Big Bang. I'm quoting him now. Classifying models into 4 possibilities. There's bouncing. The universe collapses to a big crunch, then re-expands with a Big Bang. Cyclic, a series of bounces and crunches extending forever. Hibernating, a universe that sits quiescently for a long time before the Big Bang begins. Reproducing, a background empty universe that spits off babies, each of which begins with a bang. I also listened to an interview with Sean Carroll, and he stated that the reason that we think the universe had a beginning was because of general relativity. However, we know he states that a lot of things in general relativity are wrong. And in quantum mechanics, it could indeed be possible that the material of the universe has existed forever in infinity and will exist forever. So I'm not sure Victor can sit there and claim that the universe had a beginning. He can say the Big Bang had a beginning, but not necessarily according to all physicists, or even possibly not even most, that the universe itself had a beginning. Beyond that, nothing to do with the Big Bang demonstrates Christianity. And I do think Victor was honest enough to admit that later on in his opening, that it could be just a general God that created the universe as opposed to the Christian God. The moral argument. Victor claims, and I believe he's citing William Lane Craig there, or it's certainly filtered down to Victor, probably from William Lane Craig, that if moral duties and objectives exist, then God exists. Moral objectives and duties do exist, therefore God exists. That is a fallacious. Well, it's not fallacious. It's a valid syllogism, but not a sound one, because its premises are not demonstrated to be true. This is demonstrated throughout the history of humanity. People used to what we would call murder people all the time. The Aztecs murdered their sacrificial victims. Maybe the sacrificial victims went along with it, but it was still murder because they were innocent and did not deserve to die. Slavery is okay in the Bible. The Israelites were allowed to keep slaves. They were required to get rid of slaves, to free slaves of Israelite descent after 7 years. However, other slaves they could keep. They could purchase slaves from other nations. They could take slaves in war, and they could force a slave basically to stay with them by saying, well, you can go free, but we're going to keep your wife and kids. But if you want to commit to me the rest of your life as a slave, we'll shove an all through your ear to designate your mind, and then you could stay with your family. That to me sounds like aggressive persuasion. So Victor cannot claim that morality is universal. It's not. I think it's quite subjective and demonstrably so. DNA does not demonstrate the Christian God. Indeed, God would not need DNA. An all-powerful God would not need DNA. There would be no violation of logic for God to create life without DNA. Abiogenesis, that is problematical. However, there are several ideas. They have generated RNA and other starting proteins in labs. They have found prebiotic proteins on comets and meteors. So that stuff exists out in space. They haven't solved our origin, but it is quite possible that life somehow could have developed from that. Victor, in my opinion, makes much ado of our minds. I think we humans are just more developed. I think pigeons have a sense of self. What is consciousness is not a sense of self. Pigeons can look into the mirror and they know it's them. Dolphins are the same. Dolphins can tell who they are. They can watch videos to see who they are. A big thing going on now is elephants that like to paint, that gorillas will sit there in a zoo and sit there and watch you go through their scroll, and they would tell you to scroll and tell you to scroll, and they are enjoying looking at that. So I don't think that consciousness is necessarily a human trait that is unique to us. I think we've had centuries of developing our minds more than most animals have had the ability to do so, because of written works and the ability to tell stories, and that we communicate more broadly than most animals. But yes, it is absolutely demonstrable that whatever you want to call what the brain produces, whether mind or our consciousness, is subject to physicality. If the brain gets damaged, the person's gone. The greatest example that most people cite is Phineas Gage. He was regarded as a gregarious man. He worked on the railroad. One day there was an explosion and it shoved a railroad spike up through his bottom jaw, up into his brain. He lived. You can call that a miracle if you want, but he was a totally different person. He was angry. He started fights all the time, and he was just an entirely different person. That was not the Phineas Gage they knew. A does not equal A. So if consciousness is not equal to physicality, then Victor would have to explain how that spike affected Phineas Gage in such a drastic manner that he no longer had the friends he had. We covered a bit of the Victor's facts. Jesus died by crucifixion. Okay. Buried by an enemy. That is not one listed by Gary Habermas. It used to be, but the Gospels are stories, and they develop these stories. And you see, Mark created these stories, and he just mentions, I don't even know if he mentions what you call it by name. First, he just says he was a righteous man. I don't know. I think he does mention. Sorry, my cat. Victor, help me. What's that? What's the name of the guy that buried Jesus?
Joseph of Arimathea.
Joseph of Arimathea. Thank you, stupid cat. So Joseph of Arimathea, Mark created that character, and I think he just says he's a righteous man. And by the time you get to Luke or John, he's suddenly a hidden disciple of Jesus. The story just develops and it gets exaggerated. Mark needed a way to get Jesus to a tomb. He couldn't use the disciples because they scattered, and he couldn't use the women because that's not their job. So he created this literary trope of this righteous man that buries Jesus among the criminals. Jesus appeared to women. Again, this is a story. Women were, you can read Paul, the 7 uncontested letters of Paul. Paul is very favorable to women. So this negative viewpoint wasn't necessarily existing in Christianity. It is true. Got 1 minute. It is true that women's testimony was not regarded as good as men's. However, if they did not have a testimony from men, then women could be taken into account. Women were also known to treat dead bodies. So, of course, the women would be going to the gravesite. I think we can get to that. Victor is assuming the Gospels are correct. He keeps citing these things as if they're unquestionable, not able to be questioned, and they are. Paul is making the claim that he saw that. Actually, Paul just says God revealed himself, his son in me. It's very strange wording. Paul never says Jesus appeared to me. He said, God revealed his son in me. We don't know what that means. Paul does say, however, that his entire gospel comes from revelation and reading the Old Testament. So it is quite possible that I've done things to people I didn't like and felt guilty immediately afterwards. It's quite possible that Paul felt guilty. He started questioning God, praying to God, reading the scriptures, and came up with his gospel. 10 minutes.
All right, good timing. So we're gonna get right on into it. Victor, the floor is all yours for 10-minute or 15-minute. I'm sorry, cross-examination.
Okay. Do you agree that it is illegal to believe that just because I know how the engine works, therefore there is no engineer?
Illegal?
No. Do you agree that it is illogical to believe that just because I know how the engine works, we don't need no engineer?
Do I agree that it's illogical to think?
That is illogical to believe that just because I know how the engine works, therefore there is no engineer?
Of course not.
Okay. We are crossing the desert. We come across a house. Inside, there are all necessities to survive, water, food, and even books to read. And am I reasonable to believe that who made that house?
Yes.
Is it ever okay to murder an innocent person anywhere in the world?
In my opinion, no.
Okay. Are animals creative moral beings?
I wouldn't say they're created at all.
Without a referee, a judge, or a king, can you explain how 2 opposing views, views decide who is wrong and who is right? If there is no referee, if there is no judge, there is no king. How did there's 20 people here, 20 people here. This one is arguing I'm right. This one is arguing he's right. How do you decide between those two who is right and who is wrong? Or do you need a judge or a king or a referee?
They would have to agree on a judge or referee.
Okay. Do you agree that a newborn baby is born without any knowledge of moral values, math information, and writing information?
Sure.
Okay. In the anatomy of the brain, could you Could you point where the mind and consciousness are physically located?
It's the whole brain.
Consciousness, let me repeat that. Consciousness and mind is the whole brain?
Yeah.
Okay. If a person had a dream, could we open his head and look into his brain and find the information of the dream without that person telling us?
A dream they recalled?
Okay, I have a dream and I don't tell you my dream. Could you open me up like in a surgery and find out what I dreamed?
We don't possess that technology yet.
So no, right?
There might be a place where such memories are located, or
Right.
it could be spread around the brain. But no, we don't have that.
Okay.
I think it's possible someday,
Okay.
but not possible now.
Is all existent in reality nothing else but physical material? Or in other words, does the supernatural exist?
No, I have no warrant for that belief.
Okay, so is all existent in reality nothing else but physical material?
Yes.
Okay.
Energy, but yes.
Do ethical, moral laws evolve inside the brain?
No.
When you see a dictionary, is it reasonable to believe that only a creative mind could have ever given us such semiotic information inside the dictionary? In other words, only a human being with a creative mind could do such a book. Or do you think
sort of? It's the dictionary is a documenting a societal agreement.
No, right, but only a human could create it. Or do you think it could evolve from nothing?
No, only a human created.
All right. Have you ever studied the life and resurrection of Jesus Christ, or this is your first time ever discussing it?
Multiple times over.
Okay. What is truth?
Truth is that which corresponds to reality.
Exactly. Okay. Let's see. All right. Imagine you traveled to a poor country, you went and visited a jungle and came across the tribes. The tribesmen commit murder in front of you. Okay? You become an eyewitness to those men who murder a man to steal his wife. The victim, the woman, gathers you as a witness and many other local tribes as witness, but there is no camera, no video, only eyewitnesses. You are the witness. The local tribes are against such a chaos and ideas that have been going on in their tribes. How would that turn out in a court of law with only eyewitness account?
Do they have a body?
What
was the crime?
They murdered a man to steal his wife.
Do they have his body?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
So would the eyewitness accounts count, or do you need a video or do you need video cameras or such and such technology? But there is no such technology there. So how would you what would be the outcome in a court of law if all you have with eyewitnesses and you as an eyewitness, you witnessed the murder? There's the tribesmen don't want that kind of stuff going on in their tribes, and they come and help out in a court of law. So there's about 20 eyewitnesses, and they pointed out to the murderers. How would that turn out in a court of law?
Oh, that would probably be conviction.
Okay. That's it. I hand it over to you.
You sure? You have 8 more minutes.
Huh?
You have 8 more minutes, Victor.
I got 8 more minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, let's have fun.
I don't want to short you that much.
What I want you to notice is one thing. Look how you responded to these questions. You said, what is truth? You said that which compares to reality. Right? Now watch this. When I told you 2 opposing views, you admitted it, that we need a referee, or we have to agree on a referee. In other words, we have to have a law above us in order to come to an agreement. So here's my question. What does objective moral law means?
What does objective moral law mean?
Yeah.
It would mean outside of a mind. So if you have a God that actually exists, those would not be objective morals because it would be God's mind deciding them. And even in the Christian belief,
Yeah, but that's
sorry,
not
let
my
me type
question, though.
this.
My question is, what does objective moral law means? What does objectivity means? Because you claim earlier on that
Yes.
that moral laws are subjective. But
Yes.
watch this now. You agree, but you kind of contradicted yourself because earlier I asked you if it was okay to murder an innocent person anywhere else in the world, and you said no, that's subjective.
No, I said in my opinion, that's subjective.
That's your opinion, that's fine.
Yes.
But that is an objective law.
No, I said in my opinion, it's wrong.
So where is it okay?
So I admitted it was subjective. Obviously, it was okay in Aztec culture.
Okay. But is it okay?
In
Is
my
it wrong?
opinion, no.
That's
In my opinion, it's
okay.
wrong.
So that's subjective.
No, that's subjective. It's my opinion. It's subjective.
Okay, so anywhere in the world is not okay.
Not with me, no.
Okay.
But I'm not objective. I'm subjective.
So where does it come from? Where did your idea come from? Here's what I'm going to explain to you.
It didn't come from the Bible. So it didn't come from the Christian God.
That's fine. Okay, perfect. Let's leave the God question out. Where does it come from?
Well, I read comic books. I've read books on morality.
That's very interesting because you're gonna. This is an infinite regress philosophy. I mean, fallacy, which means that you're admitted at one point. See over here where I ask you, are babies born with moral ethics? You said no.
Correct.
Okay, which means that eventually humanity had to learn moral values from someone or an animal.
No.
Oh, wait a minute. So how if a baby is not born with any semiotic information and moral laws, like you said, we're not. Well, how do you explain where moral laws, the laws of logic, which you said earlier, love and wisdom come from?
Before you answer that, Logan, let me ask you: did you want to do your cross-examination, and then we can get into this open discussion as we're having, or did you want to you guys just want to continue?
No, Victor still has 5 minutes. About.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do. I will lead questioning, and then we can have open discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Victor.
Okay, so you admitted earlier that we as babies are not born with morality, which means these human taught these human morals and these other human taught these other morals. So are you saying eventually, because many evolutionists, I'm not saying you, many evolutionists believe that we eventually evolve. Some people say we're super monkeys. Some people say we evolved from monkeys, right? So eventually we had to learn our moral values from someone or an animal. So are you saying that eventually we learned our moral values from an animal?
Yeah, it developed from there.
So you believe that moral ethics comes from animals?
Yeah.
But you said earlier that no.
That's easily demonstrable.
Wait a minute. I asked you, are animals created moral beings? You said no. All of a sudden they are?
We learn.
No, listen, you're saying right now this is a contradiction. You were talking about the law of non-contradiction. So it's either yes or no. But earlier you said, or I asked you this question, are animals created moral beings? You stated no. That's a contradiction because now you're saying that yes.
No, I didn't say they were more. No, they're still not moral beings because they can't choose.
All right. So, okay, let's move into another one because somebody posted there that mass. Now you notice that contradiction.
No, I'm just laughing because
okay, because you said at one point that that animals are not created moral beings. You just said right now that yeah, but that's fine. Look.
No, I said I would. No. What I said, Victor, was now I remember because I was trying to remember.
Oh, okay.
You said I said I don't think they're created at all, and you moved on. So I didn't actually answer that question.
Right,
said, I don't think they're-
right. That's what I remember. You didn't answer the question. He
I
said
said,
they
I don't
weren't
think they're
created at
created at
all.
all.
That's right. I took note of that. I thought that was kind of funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, but you see what's going on, right?
Well, see, I
Yeah.
So what's this?
I didn't contradict myself
Okay.
because I didn't answer that question.
So
Yeah.
here's a, so are you, so are they or not?
Or they are
So
not
did we
what?
get our moral ethics from animals?
Yeah. That's where it started, yeah. That's easily demonstrable, Victor.
Now, I'm not talking about compassion. I'm talking about an animal who taught you or anybody else murder is wrong, in
No,
his opinion.
You're interpreting that question wrongly.
Well, moral is an idea.
I'm not
It's not a
saying
physical.
I'm not saying a dog came up to me and taught me morals.
Okay, so how did
What I'm
morality
saying
evolve?
is animals have rules to maintain their species. We have rules to maintain our species, subdivided within societies. That's why societies are entitled to different.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Logan, but that's our survivor skills. That's our survivor instincts. That's not a moral ethics. I'm saying, how do you learn moral ethics from animals? Those are survivors.
Well, that's what I'm answering.
Right, but that's survivor.
Okay, so we know, scientists know, that apes have a sense of fairness. So unless you wish to claim that apes are morally responsible, this is a nature to them based upon their society. If I give one ape a banana and one ape a cucumber, the other apes throw hissy fits because it's not fair that they get bananas and that one guy got a cucumber.
No, I can agree with that.
Yeah, it's not fair.
But it's a moral ethical question.
So,
It's not a mechanism question. It's not a survival instinct. If I was to tell you, hey, how do we humans become great hunters? I could understand that we saw how a lion hunts, how a hyena hunts, etc. But what we're talking about is moral ethics. And earlier on, you said this, that if we come across a desert, no, I'm sorry. You said this. Do you agree that a newborn baby is born without any knowledge of moral values, math information, and writing information? And you said, yeah, they're not.
All right, time up. Time for Logan.
You're done, man. You can't
ran the clock
anymore.
out, Victor. You ran the clock out.
No more
man.
grilling.
Hey, I wanted to leave this in my open discussion, but hey,
okay,
we're gonna come back
good.
to this.
You did good though. That's real good.
Yeah, because
yeah, we'll leave that for the open discussion.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Is it logically possible that the universe, the material that makes up the universe, the energy, can exist in eternity?
is it possible?
Mm-hmm.
Not according to scientists, no. I have a list of scientists here. If you want me to quote it here, like I told you, he said this, that nobody wanted to admit that the universe had a beginning. Lawrence Krauss and Michio Kaku, in a documentary of the Big Bang Theory, stated, all started at the Big Bang: time, energy, space, and matter. So I don't know how you're going to get that. And something else too, why, if energy is eternal, why is energy running out, like Lawrence Krauss is saying? And there's another argument too from the law of thermodynamics. So,
it's not really running out. It's spreading out. The negative and positive energy of the universe will always be, and that's all it's doing. It's spreading out, and eventually it will have total entropy. All the energy will be distributed equally across the universe. So it's not running out. Energy cannot neither be created nor destroyed. It's always there.
No, that's the argument, but that's a fallacious. Well, that's a fallacious argument, because according to all these scientists, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Look, even Stephen Hawking, they said that ever since the Edwin Hubble discovered the beginning of the Big Bang, everybody's trying to come up with a different theory. Listen, to be honest, here's what here's my logical conclusion. That energy, if it is transferred, cannot be created, then it must be from God. It had to come from somewhere in order to create this universe.
Hey, Victor, let's
Yes.
save that for the open discussion.
Oh,
you already ran the clock out, brother.
All right, yeah. No, he asked me a question. I'm trying to just answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, let Logan just continue with your cross-examination.
Yeah.
So we don't do a back and forth.
That's why I stick to yes or no questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was slavery acceptable in the Old Testament?
Define slavery for me, please.
The possessing a human being as property.
Possessing a human being. Well, yeah. If you define it that well, yeah.
I don't know how else you would define it, but okay.
So it was okay.
It was okay in the Bible. However, you say slavery, accepting that definition, is not okay. It's morally wrong. So why did God not tell people don't own slaves? Never. Once in the Bible, not once does God or Jesus say don't own slaves. It's wrong.
You haven't read the book of Jeremiah. He says, "Woe unto him whoever make a human labor and does not pay him. Woe unto him," in the Old Testament. So if you read the Old Testament in the book of Jeremiah, it warns people, woe unto him who makes a human labor and does not pay him. But here's what you're confusing. You're confusing when God gave us free will, he allowed humanity to rule himself.
Stop, Victor. Stop. Okay. Jeremiah did not dictate Israelite society. The rules in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy did. So Jeremiah does not counteract those commands. If he does, then the Bible has a contradiction. And you strike me as the type of person that does not think the Bible has any contradictions. Correct me if I'm wrong. So slavery, you've already accepted, is okay in the Old Testament, at least in the law.
No.
Jeremiah may have had an issue with it. I'll have to read that to get the context.
Okay, but let me answer your question. The Bible, the way you phrase in your question, is saying, is the Bible okay with it? Well, the Bible is not just one book. There's many books. First of all, the question is, did God intend for human to rule themselves the way they do? No.
But he allowed. Where do you get that from? Where in the Bible does it say that?
Say what?
What you just claimed.
They allowed a freedom?
Yeah, you said
allowed
God.
A free will?
Yeah. So, but
in the book of Genesis, the first in chapter 2, he says this.
No, Victor. God.
Wait. But let me answer.
No. It's my time.
Right.
God instructed them and violated their free will in other ways, but he wasn't willing to violate their free will on the issue of slavery. That's what you're telling me.
You're putting words in my mouth. And
let me answer the question. I'm talking about the Bible.
Right.
So you did claim that God gave people free will, the free will to own slaves, but he made a law that says don't eat shellfish. So he took away that free will.
Okay.
Or at least made a law about it, did not make a law.
What are the commandments of God and what are the commandments of Moses? There are 613 laws of Moses, and you have 10 commandments of God.
I don't think the Jews don't separate those laws from
wait.
They're all from God. All scripture is God breathed.
Then you have to read the Bible, because we only have 2 commandments by the Christian God, Jesus Christ. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. And 2, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Actually, no. He said that was the 2 most important. He did not say those were the only ones. Those are the 2 most important.
In the Last Supper, he says, my children, these last 2 commandments I give unto you. Mm-hmm. And he said, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. So here's my answer to you. If you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you shouldn't have no slavery. So one thing, the way you phrase in your questions, I don't know if it's a trap or not, But
Oh,
no, God doesn't allow that mistreatment of human beings because you will pay for them. Now, would you like me to find you the exact location of Jeremiah? It says here.
no. Like I said, Jeremiah does not dictate Israelite society.
It is God who says the prophet is the one who brings a message from God. So yeah, Jeremiah is going to warn you that God says, "Woe unto him."
So why didn't God say that back in when they had slaves? Why didn't he tell that to Moses' people when he was given the law? Why didn't he say?
Okay, that's why I asked you to define slavery, because the
Well,
word.
how do you define slavery?
Well, there's two types of. Here's a problem. There's servitude, voluntarily servitude, which is translated in Hebrew ebed, and the way it was translated in English was as slavery. So let us not confuse slavery of the American history and slavery in the Bible. Now, it is true. Humans, it was a culture thing that humans were using other humans as slavery. I'm not denying that. But the question is, does God want humanity to rule themselves in such a way? No. That's the best way I can answer it, because I know this is your cross-examination.
And he didn't make it plain. Okay, Matthew 22:35-40. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? He, Jesus, said to them, you shall love your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is, you shall love your neighbor. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. However, God was okay with slavery. He permitted them to have slaves. He gave rules on them having slaves. He said, you can beat them.
Okay, this is supposed to be a cross-examination, but you're answering, so I could go back and forth. So
to the point of
I
death.
don't know if you want me to refute that or not. So
okay. Do you agree or disagree that murder has been defined differently throughout history?
Murder, I don't know. To me, murder is wrong. Especially, supposedly we call it murder because you're murdering somebody who is innocent. So now killing is totally different.
So when God commands murder of children, is that wrong?
God didn't command murder of children.
Oh, of course he did.
No, in 1 Samuel chapter 15, that is a hyperbolic expression. Now,
no, it's not.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, sir. Now, watch this. Let's go to that. Look, now, in 1 Samuel chapter 15, where you're going to read where it says, go and destroy all the Amalekites, don't leave no babies or nothing. I got a question for you. How do you explain that David finished the Amalekites if all the babies and women were destroyed?
Well, let's not question Logan.
Oh,
that
yeah.
you had some time to do that.
Sorry. Yeah, in 1 Samuel chapter 15, we see that the Israelites were commanded by the prophet Samuel to destroy all the Amalekites, and it states clearly, children, don't leave nothing behind, right? Okay. Yep. The reason is hyperbolic because later on in the chapters, we see that David is still dealing with the Amalekites. So
because
in contrast, wait,
no. My time, Victor, my time.
Yeah, but I didn't finish explaining
though. It doesn't matter. You don't need to finish. You don't need to finish.
All right.
Samuel defied God's orders. That's why David came back and said, oh, I got to take care of this business. And he
didn't.
He finished the job.
No, he didn't. Samuel was dead by then.
Okay, so David killed all of them?
I don't know whether David killed the Amalekites, but to explain it to you, if the Amalekites were killed in 1 Samuel 15, how does 10 to 20 years later we're still having the Amalekites raiding people and pillaging, however you call it? There were nomads.
Okay, it doesn't matter what happened, Victor. What matters is what God commanded. This is what God commanded.
No.
Yes, it does.
That's
Victor,
why you have to.
Stop, Victor, please.
That's why you have
Let me finish this.
Let Logan ask his question. Go ahead.
In 1 Samuel 15, 1-9, Samuel says, thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed him on the way when he came from Egypt. God then commands Saul, it's Saul, not Samuel. I was thinking that was wrong. Saul to destroy the Amalekites by killing man, woman, infant, and suckling. God commands Saul. So God commanded the murder, by your definition, of innocent persons. So how do you answer that if morality
I'm going to repeat for the
is
third
objective?
time. I want to repeat that for the third time. In the book of Samuel, chapter 30, it says that David is still finished stopping the Amalekites. So if the Amalekites and babies were
We'll
all
stop there.
destroyed,
We'll stop
okay,
there. We'll leave that.
exactly.
I'll leave that for the audience to determine that you actually
Yeah, but that's a strawman fallacy.
No, it's not. Okay. You stated demon possession is a scientific fact. I haven't heard any scientists say that except the ones with motivated reasoning.
I didn't state that demon possession is a scientific fact. I never said that.
Okay, we'll let that stand and the audience can determine whether you did or not. You have failed to override my syllogism. Do you admit that? I'm gonna find my.
I've got it. I think I wrote
the
last one in the private chat.
Do you admit that human beings that stay dead for days stay dead?
Yeah, they should.
Okay. Do you admit that Jesus was a human being?
Yes.
Do you admit, therefore, he stayed dead?
For 3 days, yes.
Why didn't he stay dead?
Because God brought him back from the dead.
Do you admit that that is a sound syllogism?
No.
Where does it have fault? Where does it not correspond to reality?
Well, if God exists, that should be solved the problem.
Nope, that's what we're.
Yes,
that's what we're. No,
well,
Victor.
No,
that's
no.
what we're trying.
Okay.
My time. Let me talk. That's what we're trying to determine. If the Christian God exists, so therefore you can't say, well, if God exists. No, we're talking about before we've even determined that God exists. So this is a sound syllogism. This is called a universal instantiation, Victor.
No.
Do you know what a universal instantiation is?
No.
I should have put it in my notes. In predicate logic, universal instantiation, UI, I find that word hard to say, instantiation. It's also called universal specification or universal elimination, and sometimes confused with dictum de omni. I have no idea what that is. As a valid rule of inference from truth about each member of a class of individuals to the truth about a particular individual of that class. So this is something in philosophy that is utilized often by philosophers. Like I said, this passed one person peer review, but a degreed person. So you have admitted that human beings that are dead for days stay dead. Jesus was a human being who was dead for days, but you're denying the conclusion. But you are not denying it based on anything except an assumption of several assumptions. One, that God exists.
This is supposed to be a
two, Victor, you're interrupting my time.
Yeah, but you answer for me, and that's not in a cross-examination. That should be.
Because I'm concluding. I want to conclude this.
You're playing the judge, and you're the
Victor,
debater.
you interrupted me. Okay?
Go ahead, Logan.
Go ahead, finish it.
I was concluding my cross-examination. Okay. One, that God exists, which we're trying to establish, and you haven't established that yet. Two, that the Bible is 100% correct, because you keep appealing to the Bible to demonstrate the claims of the Bible, and that's not how logic is done.
I never said the Bible is 100% correct.
No, but you're appealing to certain parts of it as true without demonstrating their truth first. And finally, you don't care about a universal instantiation that exemplifies that humans stay dead. Okay, we're done. It is open conversation.
Yes, okay. Y'all, the floor is yours. Yeah, go ahead first, Victor.
Okay, so the way we do this, I'll ask one question, you answer, then you ask me one, I guess. Okay. So why should I care about Jesus Christ?
I don't think you should.
Exactly. But if he rose from the dead, then that means that what he's claimed to be is true. So how did you falsify the resurrection? Because you didn't answer none of the question. It's like this. If I lay to you, just give me a second. If I lay to you and I tell you, hey, you know what, Logan, I need you to debunk the resurrection. Where would you go and how would you do it?
I already have.
Well, can you repeat that? How would you do it?
Yeah, human beings that stay dead for days are dead.
Okay.
Jesus was a human. He stayed dead for days. Therefore, Jesus is dead.
So how long does it take for a human to be dead? At what? How long would it be? Like, so let's say you find a body, and that person is about to die. At what point you say that person is dead? An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours?
Under 3 days.
Yeah. At what point?
Do you? Well, I hate to answer a question with a question, even though it refutes you. It would depend on the situation.
Right. Okay.
And back then, they didn't have brain scans. So, I mean, was Jesus
I'm
dead or
talking
not?
about today.
Was
I'm
Jesus
talking
dead?
about
I don't
today.
care about today. We're talking about the Christian God. That has
No,
nothing to do.
no. This is my question.
Uh-huh.
How long would it take for you to convince yourself that a person is dead? How long does it take?
I would test their pulse. I'm trained in CPR. I would do CPR, and I would I would probably continue doing CPR until an emergency crew showed up. And if a doctor pronounced them dead, I would say they're dead.
So how long? An hour, 2 hours?
Sure.
Okay. Now watch this. How do you explain Velma Thomas in 1994 being dead for 17 years? She held the records being dead, for 17 hours.
She wasn't dead.
Okay, well then you need to look at the peer review. Last time, Scotty, you shared it.
Victor,
she was dead. You just said the doctor declared. If the
wait,
if the doctor declares she's dead, you just said that. No, she didn't. No,
she was on a lung machine, I think.
Yeah,
she was dead.
So yeah, they were breathing for her.
What?
They were breathing for her.
No,
and I don't know. You're tossing out something that I would really have to investigate.
Okay.
And you want me to take your word for it?
No, I understand. I totally understand.
So I can't take your word on any of this.
Right. I was hoping it's a 2-minute. It was on ABC News.
I don't watch news.
Okay. Well, I do, but anyway,
I mean, not
that's
on a
fine.
regular
Go
basis.
ahead with your question. She was dead for 17 hours and came back from the dead.
Okay. I am losing my thought process. Let's see here. I don't think you countered. Do you agree with both of these statements? One God and one only exist in three persons, equal and eternal, worthy of equal praise and worship, distinct yet acting in unity, constituting the one true God of the Bible. A Trinity doctrine, this is from the SCP now, is commonly expressed as a statement that one God exists as or in three equally divine persons, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Every term in this statement, God exists as or in equally divine person, has been variously misunderstood. Do you agree with those statements?
It's kind of hard the way you put it.
Do you think God is three persons?
God is three persons?
Yes.
Yes, God is three distinct persons.
But you also think God is one?
Yes, sir.
So you can explain how that does not violate the three basic fundamental laws of thought.
Well, if it was physical, yeah. You couldn't say Scotty, Logan, and me are three because we're three different human beings. But I want you to understand something. In the Christian worldview, okay, and that's why I wanted to bring demon possession. That's my next question. This is a state of being. This is not multiplication like you were saying earlier. So God is one.
How did you determine that?
God is one. What do you mean? How did I determine what? Because I'm not going to say that Logan is 5 humans just because you have 2 hands and 2 feet. Therefore, Logan is 4 human beings or 4 human parts. You see what I mean? So, just like a triangle, you have 3 different points pointing in 3 different directions, but it's one triangle. The reason it's one triangle is because of the way it is. It's a state of being. It's not a mathematical issue. So I wouldn't say there's 3 triangles because it's pointing in 3 different directions.
I don't think you could really answer all this with metaphor. That's all you're doing, Victor, is you're answering this with metaphor. You're not really answering it with factual statements, logical statements. Um, I'm
What is
basing
my?
this. I'm
Uh,
basing this on the fundamental laws of logic, and you're just going, well, because a triangle has three sides. That's kind of how God is. But you're saying kind
this
of.
is an
No,
explanation. This got nothing. This is an explanation. Did you understand? Would you say that there's three? Would you call a triangle three triangles because it's pointing in three different directions? Or is
no,
because the object is one triangle pointed at in three directions? I mean, I'm explaining to you that in the multiplicity, you find unum. For example, a dime represents 10 pennies. It's not literally 10 pennies, Mr. Logan. It's only one dime representing 10 pennies, the value of 10 pennies.
again, that's a metaphor.
It's an explanation.
No, it's a metaphor.
Yeah, it's a
But
metaphor explaining to you
you just
what.
stated that God, the physical laws do not apply to God. So the physical rule we have created
Wait,
for a
Randy.
dime.
I've never stated that.
Oh, yes, you did, Victor. You just stated a little while ago.
No.
Scott's shaking his head. Yes, you did.
Yeah, you
No,
kind of
in the
did.
opening,
You said
in
that
the op-
because here's the thing: when Logan was saying that the law of identity was being violated, you were saying that's by physical laws, like
Yeah.
I'm not you and you're not Logan and we're not each other. We're our own self in the physical world.
no,
But in
this
the
is what I mean.
spiritual world, that doesn't apply. That's
No, no,
what you
no.
said.
I'm explaining that if we were to say, how is Victor three human beings? It's not possible. Victor's only one human being. I'm explaining to you. You asking me a question. I'm explaining to you with an illustration that one triangle points in three different directions. It doesn't matter whether it's a metaphor or anything. It's an illustration to explain to you the question that you're asking me. So I don't understand how difficult this is getting. You wouldn't call the dime 10 pennies. You would say that a dime has the value of 10 pennies, but it's one dime.
I mean, money is a societal construct anyway, Victor. We designate the value of a dime. The dime
Yeah,
could be
but
13 pennies if we wanted.
You're debating an analogy, and we're going to end up here in an infinite regress. I'm trying to
so,
explain it to you.
So you're admitting that you can only give analogies. You cannot actually give logical reasons for why God is able to violate the laws of fundamental laws of thought.
Then okay, a dime, is it 10 pennies or is it one object or is it 10 pennies?
It's one object.
Okay, does it represent 10 or is it 10 things?
It represents 10 pennies.
One God, three persons. This is the third time I keep explaining to you.
So one God represents three persons, but those three persons don't actually exist. They're not separate.
You see how you phrasing your question? Listen, one God who manifests in three different persons.
I'm taking your analogy.
One God who manifests himself in three different persons. God manifested to you as the Father, as the Son, as the Holy Spirit.
Okay. When we look at this God, is there a person? If God was in this room, would there be one person in the corner, one person on the ceiling, and one person crouching on the floor?
Say that again.
If God was in this room, would one person be over in the corner lifting weights, one God standing up on the top of a desk, and one person crouching in the floor? Or would there be one being like a dime?
In the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it says that the Son sat at the right hand of the Father. Hold on. So this is why we call God omnipresent. Okay? Because he can be at multiple times at the same time simultaneously. So is it possible for God to be lifting weights like you're saying? Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, well, in my opinion, you have not refuted my argument.
Yeah, well,
I'll let
like
you ask.
Say it's not objective yet.
It should be your turn to ask a question.
Okay. That's kind of distracting me. Okay, so Yeah, because some stinky dude is stinky dude is your cheerleader. Stinky's
Stinky
going
is
like, no, you ain't. Your Victor is doing this. Victor's being dishonest. I'm thinking, what am I being dishonest? And my head is going in a circle. Okay,
so yeah.
so here's my question to you. You stated earlier that that the supernatural doesn't exist. That all we are is physical material.
I said I have warrant for believing that.
Does the okay? Now you keep changing. Does the supernatural exist? Yes or no?
I have
You
warrant
said no
for thinking.
earlier.
I said I have warrant for thinking it doesn't.
Okay, so does it exist?
I have warrant for thinking it doesn't.
Are you an atheist?
Yes.
Okay. Here's my question. If that warranted, can you explain to me the existence of the laws of logic that you so beautifully explain?
The three fundamental laws of thought.
The laws of logic. How do they exist?
They don't really exist. They are abstracted from reality by us.
Is it independent of human opinion?
Yeah, because it's objective. Yes.
That's not my question whether it's objective or subjective. My question is, I'm gonna take you this way. Were the laws created by humans or discovered by humans?
We abstracted them.
Were they created or not created?
So if you wanted to, well, they're both. I mean, we observed these and developed a system where we said, okay, these three fundamental things are never violated by observation. However,
No,
you're arguing they are violated. So
I'm not arguing anything. My question to you, sir,
you're arguing
is this.
God violates them.
No. See,
okay.
Here's another contradiction. We are born with a blank state of mind. We have no information in the brain, but yet here you are. What's the origin of the laws of logic? Are they independent of? Okay. Did they exist even if you didn't know them?
Yes.
So they're independent of human mind.
Yeah,
we discovered them. We didn't create them then, because right?
Well, we gave them names and
so we discovered the laws. We didn't create the laws of logic.
Well, it's part of reality. Yeah.
No, were they discovered or were they created? That's my question.
What I'm saying, Victor, is there's nothing out there that we could point to, just like your concept of the brain, that is a law of logic. It's just we've extracted them from
experience simple. Reality. Okay, watch this. Was this paper created by a human or was it discovered?
Well, we created it, yeah.
Okay, were the laws of logic created or discovered?
We discovered them, if you want to.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
All right. So, where do they come from?
I told you we abstracted them from reality. But you can't point to anything in the universe or reality.
Yes, it does, because the laws. Listen, laws are created by a mind, or what else does create a mind?
No,
I mean, but what else creates laws?
Well, we call them laws, Victor, but they're not really laws. We call them laws.
Right. So, what created the laws of things?
You know, that kind of probably came from Christian scientists. So, you know, you can't use the words we use to demonstrate they exist. You can't define them into existence like your friend just by definition.
Like who? I'm lost. Like who?
It just, don't worry, my previous debater.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought it was Stinky again. I saw this Stinky dude is being stinky. Okay. You said truth is that which conforms to reality.
Yes.
Okay. That's a Stinky. That's a good topic too. Miracles. We're about to talk about miracles.
Well,
now watch this. If truth is that which conforms to reality,
yes,
right?
Yes.
You just realized that the laws of logic existed. So are they eternal or are they temporary?
No, Victor, I never called them the laws of logic. I called them the fundamental laws of, well, I did call them the fundamental laws of thought. So I guess I did.
It's fine. I mean, I'm not
So
trying to
sorry,
trap
what was
you.
what was your question? What was your question?
Okay. Since the laws were discovered,
Yes.
are the laws of logic eternal?
I can't say they are, but I can't imagine a reality where they would not apply.
So here's my syllogism for you. The laws of logic exist, therefore God exists.
No. That's not even a
The laws
syllogism. That's not even a syllogism, Victor.
I was trying, okay? Forgive my English. Okay, so
I think you would probably want to say,
here's the thing.
if the laws of logic exist, God
here's
exists.
another contradiction.
Laws of logic exist.
Here's another contradiction I see.
Okay.
Earlier, I told you it's all existent in reality, nothing else but the physical material. You said yes. And I asked you 3 times, and I know what Scotty was saying, that's true too, but I asked you, and you said yes. You also stated over here, right? Without a referee, a judge, or a king, can you explain how 2 opposing views decide who is right and who is wrong? You say they need a judge, they need to agree on a judge. So in other words, you are admitting that we need a judge, an objective moral giver. Because if 2 opposing views are at each other, then you need a referee to tell us, hey man, it's like a boxing match. 1, 2, but who decides who wins? A judge, a referee. So in layman terms, you accepted objective morality right now, there and then.
Yes, to have a functioning society, you have a way of determining who is right and who is wrong.
Right, that's objective moral laws.
But in our court systems, we come up with no contest. Like, we can't determine right or wrong.
I understand that. But my point here is we need a judge. And what I'm telling you, even you're admitting this, that we need a judge, and therefore it is logical for me to believe that God is the moral giver, the foundation of our moral law. Where is your moral law foundation coming from?
Well, in the society I'm in the society I structure, the society I agree to live in.
No. Where does the moral foundation of atheism come from?
Well, atheism isn't a moral. Atheism doesn't have a moral foundation. It's just a position on a proposition. God exists or does not exist. There are multiple non-God morality systems, such as humanism, Buddhism.
Yeah, I understand that, Mr. Logan, but you in a way
they come from us, Victor. They come from us. Your beliefs come from you. They come from other humans. Your beliefs about Christianity, all of that, come from humans.
Okay.
You haven't demonstrated otherwise.
Wait, believe.
You're claiming
I believe in me. Watch this. If somebody tells me, is Mr. Logan a good debater? I will say yes.
I appreciate it.
And wait, true. It's true. I'm telling you, this is what I love. I love to be challenged in my worldview. But watch this now. My belief that Mr. Logan is a good debater is based on the evidence that he's showing me right now.
Yes.
Okay. My belief in God is based on the historical evidence shown to me and by the logical conclusions that nothing creates nothing. So if the universe had a beginning, I believe that God started it. You haven't answered that question. Then I ask you if yeah, but it's illogical. Can you have,
Of course. Well, logic just means it doesn't violate any agreed upon rules we have in the system of logic. That's all logical means.
You know, I was reading earlier.
And we created those rules.
Right. Watch this now. A computer. Many people believe that the universe is like a giant computer.
Uh-huh.
Watch this now. Do you believe that a computer could evolve from a non-creative mind?
No.
So how do you explain the universe coming from a non-creative mind? That's all my question.
One, I don't need to, but it is not logically impossible.
Okay, show me how.
As I said, Sean Carroll is an established scientist. He probably has people that agree with him. I haven't taken a poll. He asserts that the beginning, the Big Bang is the expansion of the universe, but it is not the universe as beginning. It is not the universe being created or coming from nothing. No one ever argues that. I keep correcting theists on that. I don't. Well, some people do. Lawrence Krauss screwed us by using that terminology, even though he didn't mean that. But I don't assert that something came from nothing. I think there was this. I say energy, but if you want to say energy was started with the expansion, we'll call it the stuff. Okay, for lack of a better word. I think that stuff, there's nothing logically prevented it. It doesn't violate any laws that stuff is eternal. And that time, energy, and space for us, for our experience, began with that expansion. There's nothing logically impossible about that. Can I demonstrate it? No. But can you demonstrate your God? No. And just because
We're
I can't
about to right now, let's get to the bottom line.
If
you give me a logical argument,
I wasn't finished. Because I can't answer your question does not mean God exists.
I agree.
Okay, good.
Okay, I agree. Did Jesus existed?
For the purpose of debate, I'm accepting that somebody did.
No, we're talking about the Christian Bible, Jesus.
Oh,
did Jesus existed?
That is disputed by historians.
No, I'm asking you because I'm not debating history. I'm asking you. We did our homework. I did my homework, and I can show you. And I did so many prints out because I'm taking one of the best YouTube channels in YouTube, the discussion, very seriously.
Yes.
And one of the things that I did, and to be honest, is I looked to all a huge historical data where there is no denying of Jesus' existence. So here's my question. If Jesus was a regular man, I wouldn't bother with Jesus. So my question is, his family didn't believe him. His disciples didn't believe him. His enemies even worse. Paul didn't believe him, right? So how do you explain the rise of Christianity?
You're assuming that Jesus, that the items in the Bible are certain specific details in the Bible are accurate. Mm-hmm. Whereas my position is some guy existed named Jesus. He inspired a movement. He died unexpectedly in a horrific way. His followers did not give up on him. And he, let's see what the word is. Okay, the followers of Jesus had grief hallucinations. These are documented. These are well documented by science.
No.
That people claim, oh, yes, they are grief hallucinations.
No, they're not.
So that's what they did. They affirmed, really? You never heard anybody say, I saw grandma last night?
No. That's not my argument. Here's what I'm going to explain to you. Here's my argument. Why would they, listen to me, hallucinations?
Yeah.
Let's say I hallucinate. That doesn't mean Jesus rose from the dead. I wouldn't go to my death. I could admit, I could say, hey, you know what? If a group of guys, hey, I hallucinated Jesus last night too. Okay, we need to leave because I'm not going to get killed for a hallucination. So the hallucination hypothesis doesn't hold. I mean, this is a no.
Sure it does, Victor.
No, it doesn't. I just asked you earlier about a dream. This is the purpose of the dream. Look, I asked you earlier, is it possible for me to go inside, for you to go inside my brain, and for you to find out what I dreamed? You said no. That was an example to lead you to this topic right now, hallucination. So how does multiple people see the same thing?
How do you know they saw the same thing?
Huh?
How do you know they saw the same thing? Paul saw a light.
No, he didn't. He saw the risen Jesus.
No, he saw a light.
No, he saw the risen Jesus. Wait,
I don't believe Acts, but Acts says he saw a light.
Acts don't care about feelings.
Paul says God revealed his son in me. That's kind of vague. You have no grounding on
Let's read it. Let's read it.
No,
I
let's not
gave you
read
the
it.
reference.
No,
Okay,
let's not read it.
well, Paul is not going to die for a light. He had a conversation with Jesus. He says, "Who are you?"
Whoa. See, this is all an argument from incredulity on your part, Victor. Okay, let's look at a couple examples. Do you think the Mormon beliefs are true?
I'm not. See, here you go.
No,
Hold
Victor.
it.
No.
No, I'm not here to
Victor?
debate. I'm here to debate the Christianity. We're about to lose time. Let's debate this. And if you want to, we
No.
could do after the party. We could do the party after, and we can debate. See,
So you're not going to let me defend my
no,
side the way I want to
I
defend
saw
it.
an
I'll
argument
let
with
you defend your
Frank
side with analogies.
Yeah, Victor,
wait.
let him go ahead. It's just an
Okay, go
argument.
ahead.
Okay. Do you believe Mormonism is true?
No.
Do you think, based on historical data, that Joseph Smith was a con man?
Based on historical data, yeah, there is historical data. I've heard that he was a con man. He was, yeah.
Okay. Despite the fact that he was an established con man, has Mormonism grown into one of the largest religions in America?
The richest, I would guess, yeah.
I can't believe that, Victor. I can't believe that Joseph Smith was not true and honest and a religion grow about it. That just doesn't work. That's an argument for incredulity, Victor. He was
That is a
dishonest.
wrong parallelism. I'm going to explain to you why.
Okay. Is the Heaven's Gate cult, did they die for their beliefs?
Anybody would die for their beliefs. Some people believe, hold on, let me word it like this. Some people believe for what they think is true to their religion.
Thank you.
The disciples in 1 John, he says, the disciples in 1 John, it clearly says this. Hold on, I wrote it here. It clearly says this. And I want to read it to you because this is very important. So please don't tell me don't read it because this is very important. And I want to read it to you. He says here. First John chapter 1. He says, what was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, that we have observed and touched with our hands concerning the word of life, that life was revealed. They didn't die thinking something was true. They're saying we saw with our own eyes that Jesus rose from the dead. You see the difference here? I totally understand you, Mr. Logan. And that's why I want you to address the facts, the historical facts of the resurrection. And what leads us to the conclusion, okay, it's like we're in a court of law. If
Are you
hello?
good?
You're all by
I
yourself.
thought
You're all by
everybody was.
yourself.
I was like,
I
what,
was putting
Jesus?
I was putting you on front stage. That's all. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay, my bad. Okay, so here's my question: if we're in a court of law and we're solving this problem, the court case right now is: did the resurrection happen? You haven't addressed the historical facts of the facts of the resurrections that I put. You haven't done that. What you did is you went to Mormonism thinking that debunks Christianity or the resurrection, and it doesn't. You got to look at the facts of the case, and then we can go to Mormonism and look at the facts of those cases. It's like this. Let's say Victor is being judged for a murder case. Why would I bring Logan into another murder case? The case right now is Victor Vargas' case. The case right now is Christianity. So,
Okay, well, Victor, I think you're just basing this on an argument from credibility based upon your own beliefs, your own commitment to this religion. You stated, would Paul do this if it didn't actually happen? Well, sure. There's nothing preventing Paul from doing this. There is nothing preventing idiots from following Joseph Smith. You like analogies, except when those analogies challenge your own ideas. I was making an analogous case to Mormonism that they followed a moronic, dishonest person.
I totally agree. Look at the James
and they still
Jones
followed
case.
their religion after they dumped him.
Look at the James Jones case. You remember the James Jones case?
Yeah,
the
Jim
Kool-Aid
Jones.
Man. What is it called? The Kool-Aid?
They committed suicide, Victor.
No, watch this now. Did you see the whole documentary? Did you actually read the books?
No.
Okay, here's what I'm going to explain to you. Watch this now. Your job now as a prosecutor is to prove the eyewitness wrong and to prove the motive of the eyewitness. Now, watch this. When they went to Jonestown, right? Went to Jonestown, half of the people started saying, wait a minute, I don't really want to die for this. There were 700 people. They were already in trouble. But you see, now they started questioning it, meaning that they didn't want to die for a lie. They didn't want to die for these con men. And some of them were murdered. Some of them did it voluntarily, thinking they were going to heaven. But my point in case is this: the eyewitnesses, they died for what they saw, not what they just believed. I told you that in John, in the book of John, chapter 20, Thomas even said it. Hey, if I don't see Jesus and I put my hands through the holes, I'm not going to believe in him. That's the difference here, Mr. Logan. I understand the whole analogy of Mormonism, and I agree with you. Some people do crazy stuff, but not in this case.
So did you guys?
Were you timing that, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you guys want to move into your closing statements at this point?
Yeah, I got to finish up and go see my wife. So
sure thing.
I won't be able to do an after show, unfortunately. Unless she's asleep up there. I hate not to address anything the audience said, but yeah, I got to go. Okay, so I forget, informal debates. You'd go first. And then, I would go first? Okay. Yeah. All right. So this debate was whether or not the Christian God exists. In asking that question, we admit that it's an unanswered question as of yet. So therefore, for Victor to make that proposition, most of the burden of demonstration falls upon him. I have, however, proposed challenges to that. One, my syllogism based on universal instantiation, that dead people stay dead. Jesus was dead. Dead people that are dead for days stay dead. Jesus was dead for days. Therefore, Jesus stayed dead. Victor was not able to override that universal instantiation without appealing to, well, if God existed, well, that's what we're debating. I also brought up the argument from universal revelation. Although Victor is not out to defend any other religions, we can still address it by the fact that no explorer, no person that accidentally showed up on any continent ever documented anything about Judaism or Christianity until Europeans and possibly Middle Easterns and people like that stretched out. It all emerged through human hands, human creation. Victor wants to point out, he says, he uses the watchmaker argument and say, if we found a house in the desert, well, of course, because I know what a house is. I know what it takes to make a house, humans. So if Victor wants to say that, then yes, I know what a God is. It's a made-up, created being believed to exist by certain religious people. So does God exist as an idea? Yes, created by humans. I didn't set a timer, Scott. I hope you did. Lost my train of thought. So
got another minute.
Oh, we'd only done 5?
Yeah, you can. Okay. You got a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay. I raised the issue that the Trinity, which is a traditional doctrine of Christianity, which Victor accepts, is problematic according to the laws of logic. The laws of fundamental thought. Victor wants to argue that either the God is exempt from them based on his own opinion, or that and the laws of God, these laws actually exist. So either God is subject to them or he is not. If he is not, Victor needs to explain how he demonstrates that. Victor has not demonstrated that. Finally, the majority of Victor's opinion is like Stinky just says. I was just getting to that. He is assuming the Gospels are correct. He just brought up Thomas. Thomas is that story about Thomas is from the majority historians think that is the last of the canonical Gospels written. Why can't John just make up that story? Why can't John, the author of John, which is anonymous, by the way, the entire book is anonymous. They don't know who wrote it. Why can't he just make up these stories to buttress people's beliefs? Victor also appeals to, I can't believe Paul would die for a lie. I can't believe the Christians would do this. That is all appeals to incredulity because he can't believe. The examples of Mormonism and other religions, other cults, dying for their clearly assumed false beliefs that no one else doubts are false. Victor has no issue with accepting those are false, but somehow his religion, based upon an argument from incredulity and an argument from the Bible, is true.
All right. Victor, the floor is yours.
Now, did Jesus existed? Yes. Why should we worry about a single human being? I wouldn't. Like I said in my first, when I was being cross-examined, why should I worry about some Jesus? I don't care. But the fact that everybody in the rise of Christianity grew up so fast and it's the biggest religion is because Jesus claimed to be God and proved it by rising from the dead. Now here's the main thing. If you go and see the cross-examination again, Mr. Logan totally contradicted himself. But here's the main issue. He never addressed the historical resurrection facts. He said there was hallucination. Let me explain to you why that's impossible. People don't have hallucination in groups. Find me one psychologist or psychiatrist that admits that there have been group hallucinations. Now, people can hallucinate in a group, but just like I asked them in my cross-examination, do you believe that if you dig into my brain, you can find out what my dream was without me telling you? He said, no. He says, maybe one day we will. That's fine. But we don't unless I tell you my dream. Okay? We have the consciousness and brain issue here. So, did he explain the historical facts? No. What he had to prove was, why would the disciples of Jesus Christ believe Jesus rose from the dead or made up a story and then die for it? Who dies for a lie, literally? See, because if Jesus didn't rose from the dead, why didn't the leaders could just say, hey, he's in the tomb? Because an enemy of the disciples buried him. Who buried Jesus? Joseph of Arimathea. That's why that's important, because if they would have said, hey, Jesus rose again, the leaders could have gone and said, hey, let's go to the tomb because Jesus' body is there. The whole Christianity would have been done. The second argument is the argument for the women's testimony. Like Joseph of Arimathea, they said that women's testimony was worthless. Well, hey, but it was included there. They admitted that they ran like cowards, and the women were the first ones who said, hey, Jesus rose again. Then he presented to everybody. Now, here's another question that the best witness for the resurrection is Paul. Paul was a Jew. Paul was a strict Jew. Paul thought he was doing Judaism a good thing, that there's only one God and God would never stoop so low as to come and die for our sins. Never. Never. So if Paul didn't see Jesus, why would he turn his whole life around to go die for a lie? It doesn't make sense. We got to look at the facts, and we got to see, hey, why would this person turn around? He's at 180 degree. He had to have seen the risen Jesus. Then the disciples in John chapter 20, even Thomas, his own disciple, says, I'm not going to believe until I see it with my own eyes. John chapter 20, he says, my Lord and my God. Why? Because he looked at him, he touched him. Then Jesus spent 40 nights and 40 days with the disciples. Is that a hallucination? How could you hallucinate eating with somebody for 40 days and 40 nights? We got a bigger miracle here. So the resurrection facts still remain unanswered. Now, listen, my English is pretty bad. I did this homework because I took this debate very seriously, and it's always the same cop out, like Stinky is doing over there. It's always the same cop out. Answer the questions. Don't address me. I could be the stupidest person in the world, but I'm looking at the historical facts. I'm looking at the facts that nobody's going to die for a lie. So what's the best explanation of the eyewitness accounts? That they hallucinated. That has been debunked because group hallucinations are impossible. And the reason we have Christianity being so accepted today is because we got the best arguments out there that haven't been debunked. If Jesus existed and he rose from the dead, he is the Christian God, and Mr. Logan didn't really address him. He wanted to trap me with word. He's addressing me. Like I said from the beginning, and I'm going to repeat I said this. How does Victor and Mr. Logan respond to the historical evidence? Let's put God into court. If I was to tell him, hey, let's destroy Christianity right now, is he going to say, no, because there's a lot of religious people. That doesn't debunk Jesus, Christianity. No, because there's 3,000 religions. Okay, is Christianity false or is it still true? What is it? You're going to have to look at the data. What does the data say? What does historical records say? Another thing, he's saying that I'm trying to avoid other explanations for religions. I'm not here to debunk other religions. It's like this. We're in a court of law. The court case, Your Honor, is, does the Christian God exist? It doesn't say, Your Honor, we're also going to bring other gods into the picture. Why? That's not at the topic of discussion. That's why I refuse somehow to answer those, because it's a red herring fallacy. Okay, we've got to focus on the case at hand. Did he debunk the resurrection of Jesus Christ? No, it was simple. He had to give a logical explanation, and he didn't. He didn't refute any of the historical facts of the resurrection. So let us say like he said earlier, I could be wrong. That doesn't mean that such a claim is false. And I say it's true. Again, now I'm going to throw it out to him. I could be wrong. That doesn't mean that historical resurrection facts are wrong. He didn't address it. So does the Christian God exist? Yes. Look at his, I want everybody to remember this, and I can't stress about it. Look at the cross-examination, and then look at the open discussion. The many contradictions he caught himself on. Objective moral laws exist, therefore God exists. When I ask him, do we need a judge? He says, yes, we do. I say, is murder ever wrong? He says, well, in my opinion, yeah. Well, yeah, he's wrong everywhere in the world. That's why he's called objective moral law. Then I ask him, are babies born with moral ethical laws? He said, no. Well, at one point he said animals gave us moral values, but then all of a sudden, no, they don't. But in the cross-examination, he says, I asked him, are animals moral, creative, moral, ethical givers? And he said, I said, are animals creative, moral beings? He said, no. But when I asked him, where did our moral values came from? He says, it is very proven that animals. What? That's a contradiction. So you guys got to look at the open discussion, and you guys got to look at the cross-examination. That's why I asked those questions. That's why cross-examination is the best way to see how a person views reality. It's not a got you thing. I like to get a person to where they see the way they see reality, and then the worldview. So
all right, Victor, very good, very good. Lively debate, guys, and I know Logan's got to run. I don't know of any other questions that we might have, or if you guys have time to.
I have time. I'm okay with Mr. Logan. I know you gotta go. Thank you, sir. Hey, I gotta go back and hey, you know what? For 2 weeks, man, I'm like, I gotta prepare because I saw your 3 minutes debate with Alejandro. I said, I
Yeah.
was like, this is not gonna be easy.
No, no,
So
no.
eh,
Logan did a great job. You did a good job too, Victor. And I thank both of you for coming through tonight. You know, it was really fun. I have to actually run myself
okay.
and
So
get out of here, but did appreciate you guys coming through. I think we had a big audience, larger than usual. And so guys, like and subscribe. I'm going to try to have normal debates every weekend if I can. So
Mr.
let's
Logan,
keep it
again,
going.
thank you so much, sir. And I hope Alex G is not that stinky dude there. Come on, Alex. Let's go debate. Oh, you're on mute. You're
Hold on.
on mute.
Oh,
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
he muted me. I don't know. Or the cat did. I don't know. She
Yeah.
finds buttons on the keyboard I didn't know existed. I would like to thank Alejandro and Scott again. Alejandro, this just demonstrates that we can get a little. I wouldn't call it. We weren't heated. We can vigorously disagree with each other during a debate, but that doesn't mean we're not nice to each other at the end. And I can say, "Oh, you're not saying that." You could say, "Yes, you are." And we don't have to get heated. People don't have to get heated in these debates. Just I think Victor's honest with me, and that's all I care about. I don't think Victor he's driven to win. Like winning's not the most important to him. I think he wants to learn. I think learning is more important to him, and that's what matters to me. And if somebody comes along and they say, "Oh, I care about my winning than being honest," then I have an issue. So anyway, thanks you both, and
Yeah,
I'm glad we could keep it cordial.
Yeah,
Hey, good
absolutely.
night, Scotty. Thanks,
Good
sir.
night, guys. Y'all have a good night.
You
And
too.
thanks a lot, everybody.
All right.
Join me next time.